What's up, guys, in the works, and welcome to another Underused Weapons. And today we are taking a look at the Saiga 12 gauge, which is a pretty underused shotgun, and a lot of you guys wanted to see this gun make an appearance. But I would say across the board, shotguns as a general rule don't get used quite often. I mean, they're pretty tricky to use considering that some of the other high fire rate assault rifles can kill quicker than this up close. And so you don't see shotguns used that much, let alone the Saiga 12 gauge. But I will admit, when they first patched these about a month or 2 months ago, whenever that last patch was, they made them much better, and you did see an increase in the amount of people using this. And there are some people that really swear by the Saiga 12 gauge. You know, I'm not a huge hater of this weapon. I know a lot of people out there don't like it. I definitely see its point, but it's compared to the Dow and the M1014 most. You know, in most situations, that's the shotguns that a lot of people compare it to. And a lot of people ask me, you know, does it stand up to that? Because I'm a huge fan of the Benelli, the M1014. I think it works awesome if you know how to kind of to master it. And the one thing that I like using on it is flechette rounds, and you'll see me using that throughout this entire video. And on most of my shotguns, yes, I do tend to run flechette rounds because it gives you that extra range. Although you do trade the up close damage, once you get outside of like 5, 6, 7 meters, that doesn't really matter. So it makes it more beneficial to have them on. You know, it gives you the tighter spread. And you know, on In The Works Media, we like tighter spreads on our shotgun. And it definitely does get the job done. You'll see I do some work with these here. I don't really feel that nerf that you get up close. Because if you're on target, if you're getting those flechette rounds on target, you will have good results. Now, one thing you may notice about this is that it has a lot of weird circle-like recoil. And that's one of the things that kind of annoys me about this shotgun. Like, as you shoot it tends to feel like you're circling. And it makes it really difficult to center mass. And center mass is what you need to do with shotguns. Like, a lot of people will tell you to aim for the head. Don't do that, guys. I mean, you do get a multiplier to a certain extent, but honestly, center mass is where you want to go. You want to get the most pellets on target. That's where you're going to have the best results. Now, how does this compare to the M1014? How does this compare to the Dow? I know we're not technically doing a showdown, but you can't really talk about the semi-auto shotguns without talking about reload times, because that's the biggest difference. Well, if you compare the M1014 and the Saiga 12 gauge in reload times, you'll look at it and you'll notice that the Saiga can reload, you know, 7 rounds without extended mags in 3.5 seconds empty, or 2.2, I believe, if it has one in the chamber already. So pretty quick. Whereas the M1014, if you've got one in the chamber, it can reload at a half a second per shell. So theoretically, if you're not using extended mags on the Saiga 12 gauge and you're reloading your Benelli, it's going to reload at the same time. Because if, you know, 7 divided by 2, or, you know, a half, you're going to get 3.5 seconds, which is exactly the same. So in reload times, you don't really see a huge difference until you put on extended mags, because with the extended mags, you can have 12 rounds in the Saiga 12 gauge. So that's a big difference. I mean, reloading 12 rounds in 3.5 seconds, that's very fast. Whereas the Dow, that thing is slow. That is one of the slowest reloads. It's so painful. Considering that if it's empty, you have to flip it around and pull that little lever back to reload it. It's pretty annoying. So far as reloads go, if you have extended mags on the Saiga 12 gauge, it definitely is better than the other shotguns. So keep that in mind when choosing it. Now you're probably asking yourself, what about the pellet counts? The Saiga and the Dow have the exact same, which is true. There are no differences. They both shoot 9 pellets, whereas the M1014 shoots 10 pellets. So that's another thing to consider. Now, let's stop talking about stats. Let's talk about my experiences with the weapon and how it handles. I think it's a good weapon, but I think it leaves a lot to be desired. Now, all the semi-autos shoot about the same in rate of fire. They're all 220 rounds per minute or whatever. The only shotgun that really has a big difference in bullet velocity, I think, is the MK3A1 and I think the SPAS. They both shoot 300 meters per second, whereas the other ones shoot 450 meters per second. Now, you might be tempted to be like, well, this would be a good candidate for slugs. I don't know about that. Slugs didn't really work too well for me. I found flechette works the best. Flechette or buckshot's the way to go. Like, I already mentioned why I like flechette, so I won't get into that again. But avoid frag rounds, obviously. Those are just garbage now, guys. But it's really not comparable to the USAS or the MK3A1, just because those are, you know, spammable. These are more precision. You definitely need to aim down sights when using them, otherwise you'll get a lot of hit markers. Now, I find it works a lot better as a flanking shotgun as opposed to a head-on shotgun. If you want a head-on shotgun, obviously the 870 or the SPAS is the way to go, because if you run into a big group of people head-on, you're maybe going to get one, and they're probably going to get revived. So keep that in mind when using this. You know, I would say it's a good weapon. I understand why it's underused. It is very, very difficult to use, but once you get the hang of it, you can do decent. It's definitely not unusable. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Be sure to let me know what kind of underused weapons you might like to see in the future, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.